Welcome to this week's episode of Your Power Packed Podlets. My name is Rachel, and I'm your host for these mini magical journeys together. Now, the name of these mini podcasts is so incredibly fitting for this week's episode, as it's going to be jam-packed full of value. In fact, I recommend you have a notepad and pen as you listen in, and if you don't, come back to this later, listen again, and make notes. Because this week's episode, we're talking about strategy. This week's episode, we're talking about what it looks like to go from zero to a thriving, profitable company. And I'm going to be covering two essential elements that so many people overlook and misunderstand, that you're potentially misunderstanding right now, and it is getting in your way of even understanding where to begin and how to begin. Or if you're looking at another level, you probably don't know what's blocking that next level, and today you're going to hear what that is. Now, before we get into this week's subject, this is the sort of stuff that's taken me multiple businesses to really understand, multiple decades to really learn, and I'm going to be compressing some of that wisdom into a really short audio. And this week's topic was in fact chosen by one of my communities. I run both free and paid spaces, and in one of the free spaces, which is where the topic came from, the women there actually get to participate in choosing what subjects we cover. They get regular high-value audios, and not only that, they get a behind-the-scenes look at what is going on. They are the first to know when we've got something coming up, whether it's a masterclass, a workshop, an offer on, or a live event. So if you want to be in that community, you're going to find a link to that in the description below. But not only this, there's only so much I can cover in one short audio. There's only a certain level of understanding you can get in this description of these elements we're going to be covering. And I want you to really get this. I want this to make so much sense for you, not just in your mind, in this place of inner knowing of how to move forwards with your life and your business. So this month, I'm going to be hosting 2 masterclasses. And if you're somebody who not only wants to thrive in business, you want time freedom, but you also want to be healthy and you want to enjoy your journey of growth, then you're going to find both of these masterclasses really, really useful. In fact, the first one, which is going to be the strategy to go from zero to profitability, we're going to be going through all of the steps and breaking them down. You can bring your business project to the table, your ideas, your starting point, and we're going to discuss in community in the space. You're going to hear what the other women they're doing, you're going to learn from their examples, and you're going to hear through real life examples what it looks like to apply these strategies, and you're even going to get individual personalized coaching during the sessions on how to move forwards and how to begin. This is the type of masterclass where you listen to it the first time and you're going to see, okay, I want to focus on this now, but you're also going to come back to it again in a month, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and it's going to give you the next set of things to be focusing on. Not only this, I recommend the second masterclass because this is about you, the epicenter of everything that's being created. Because what your journey is, what your starting point is, what your blueprint is unique to you. It's unique to your identity, to your past experiences, to your current skill sets, to your current level of confidence, and your current level of understanding of the ecosystems of business. And so in the second masterclass, we're going to be unpacking what your starting point is. Like, what does it look like? What do you want to be focusing on in 2026? What are the skills, the confidence, the clarity, the certainty? What's the strategy? Where to focus based on where you are now? And also what's leading you into a successful 2027? Like what your theme is going to be for 2027. And we're not just going to be doing it through logic and strategy. We're also going to be breaking it down through some personalized readings. When you sign up, you're going to see what readings to download from the internet. So you bring it to the session, and we're actually going to unpack some more spiritual, theoretical elements. You'll find out when you sign up what that's about. You'll find the link to both of those in the description, and I look forward to welcoming you in. Okay, Let's dive into the subject for this episode. We're going to be focusing on two elements alone because I did actually start recording this and I started going through all of the strategy and I thought, wow, this is going to be so overwhelming. Packing so much in, you wouldn't be able to hear the essential elements because it was focusing on too much. And so I asked myself, what are the two main things I see people struggling with the most and misunderstanding the most? And we're going to be going through those now. So, have you got your notepad and pen ready? Let's begin. And this is going to make so much logical sense for you. If you hadn't heard it before, you're going to think, why didn't I think of this? When I set up my first few businesses, I focused on what I wanted to offer. I became an expert in those things. I took course after course, and I became really good at what I was doing. And I focused on what I was most passionate about, and I offered that to the world. I put it out there, and you know what? I had lots of clients. It took time to build up my client list, but by the time I decided to dissolve my previous businesses, they were thriving in terms of numbers, in terms of participants in the things I was offering. But here's the thing. I approached it from what I wanted to create. I created the product and service, and then I worked really, really, really hard to market it. It was so much work to market it. Not only this, there was a massive glass ceiling on my growth potential, my impact potential, and my earning potential. Because I'd approached my business from the mindset of a service provider, from the mindset of turning my passion into profitability, without understanding what the market wants and what were the problems I was helping people with and how were my expertise, how to format them in a way to get people those results. And so, yes, my clients were having an exceptional time and there was incredible levels of healing, from the coaching to the spiritual mentorship to the guidance and the yoga classes, the fitness, the nutrition. Clients were getting results. But I reached a point in my business, not only was I working way too much and earning way too little, I also realized they weren't getting the level of results I knew they could get with the potency of the work that I'd studied. I could see the changes in my life were on a whole other level than the changes my clients were seeing, and I started to get really frustrated. So when I decided to start all over again, not only was I looking at having a business without a glass ceiling, on earning potential, on time freedom, on the amount of value I could bring and the number of people I could serve. I was also really interested in what does it look like to take people to a whole other level of transformation? What has been getting in my way to really get people the results I want to get them? And funnily enough, I learned through studying business, because this was the next thing. I then went deep into studying business and understanding what it is to be a startup. So let me pause with that thought for a moment. Are you approaching your business as a startup? Even if you're well into business, if you've not approached it from this perspective yet, this is really going to change the game for you. What does it look like to approach your business model, your products and services, your market research, and how you package your products and services from the perspective of a startup company? Because I began to study this, and this is what really changed the game for me. I realized that I've been selling people what I wanted to sell versus acknowledging what are the greatest problems my clients are facing, and what does it look like for me to optimize them solving those problems. How does my business want to be set up in a way that I have enough space and time to be learning and applying and doing self-care and living life so that I can be in an optimal place to serve my clients, and also to do it in a way that they're able to get maximum results without having to give away a lot of their time? How can I remove the friction between where the client is and where they want to be? How can I speed up their process and make it really fun and enjoyable, make it really streamlined? And so I began to approach it from the startup mindset. I began to approach it from what are all of the things that get in the way of the client getting the results that they want? What are all of the obstacles? What are all of the challenges they face? What are the biggest problems that they have? And how am I going to create something so effective that the majority of them, because there's always a small percentage that won't get the results because they're not applying. And this is something that we have to overcome when you're working with humans. But how can I maximize the number of people who are getting to the result? What does that look like? And so it really shifted how I presented my products and services. It upgraded my boundaries. It upgraded the quality of what I was offering. It required I actually go back to the drawing board and study more to increase my own leadership, to increase my own inner safety. So much growth happened in that period, purely from shifting from how can I sell something I want to sell to what does it look like to fill a market need? What does it look like to get serious results where people recommend me to everybody? They shout my name off the rooftops because of how much their lives have changed. And what does it look like to package it in a way that I don't have to give so much of myself I'm depleted? So that is number one. Shift your focus from what you want to sell to what does the market need and how can you meet it? Often you are doing the same, you're working with the same skill sets, you're purely packaging it in a different way. Because I can guarantee a lot of you are actually giving too much and you're overwhelming the audience, you're overwhelming the clients. It requires so much of them to get the result that they want. It gets to a point where they get exhausted and they give up. So this shift is going to make a big difference. But here's the second one. And this is something that, interestingly enough, I unconsciously understood from day one in business, having never studied it. But I'm going to share this with you because it makes such a difference. Because I would see, when I first started out, I was a personal trainer and a yoga teacher. And I saw, when I decided to leave that first line of work, I realized that the majority of my clients had stayed with me for the longevity of my time there. 4 years. They'd studied with me at the beginning, and the majority of them were still there by the end. And I would see other people, or colleagues, some of whom it was the same, many of whom they were constantly having to look for new clients. And so not only were they serving the clients in front of them, they were constantly having to look for new ones. Whereas my problem, in inverted commas, was the opposite. So many of my clients were staying with me that I didn't actually have room for new ones coming in. So I was having to adjust and move things around to be able to fit in enough clients. Now, you may say that sounds like a wonderful problem. Yes, but what does that problem highlight? Let's come back to business model. What that problem highlights is there's only so much of your time you can give away. So there's only a certain number of people I could serve because there are only a certain number of hours in my day. And I was serving so many people, I get to the weekend completely exhausted. I didn't want to know anything about anyone. I wanted to throw my phone in the bin. So business model is essential. But let's come back. Client journey. And this is something I see a lot of people making a mistake in, is they spend so much time, they put so much passion and effort into finding out what their purpose is, finding out what their mission is, learning the skills, creating the products and services, marketing themselves, setting up their whole businesses. And then once everything's up and running, realizing they have the exact same problem those colleagues of mine had, constantly having to chase new clients. And I see people, and I'm going to talk about the service industry, but this goes across the board. It's the same with products. I see people offering something that a client might need for 3 months. And if this business owner is very good at what they do, the client will get the result they want in 3 months, and then they're done. I'd like you to consider, with your product or service, if you're really, really good and you choose to be really, really good, does it mean that within a short period of time, your clients, they won't require your services anymore? Because if that's the case, That's a big hole in your strategy. I'm not talking about not getting the client's consistent results. I'm talking about the fact that with your product and service, you're focusing on one thing. And once that one thing is solved, you've got to go out and find more clients, more clients, more clients, more clients. And so you're having to spend so much time on client acquisition and delivering and getting your client results. Of course, it's normal you're going to burn out. What does it look like to approach your business understanding the longevity of a client's journey? 3, 4, 5, even 10 years. What does it look like to provide a product or service that serves your client for a lifetime? Not that you're creating a constant need, you're understanding what it is to grow and adapt with a client in front of you, or to offer something that serves them continually again and again and again. This, for some of you, will require consistent growth, but that's exciting. So that you're actually investing time into your own personal development and growth so that you can consistently be 10 to 50 steps ahead of the people that you're serving. So I invite you to pause with this one and consider what your client journey is. Because the way I operate my business, and this has always been the case, is I offer a product and service where people get incredible results, but they're not just with me for the results. They're with me for the experience. They're with me because working together is such a pleasurable experience. For them, it makes logical sense to want to continue. This feeling of consistent support and growth and nuances on the things and this expansive environment is something they want to be a part of. Their life experiences better because of being a part of the things I create. It is not always about filling a need, it's also about understanding desire. So when you are putting a product or service out there, first, how do you solve a problem and meet a need? And then how do you help people to meet the desires that they have and improve the quality of their life in some way that they naturally want to continue with you? Now, I know this would have been really useful for you. And this is just a taster, it's just a bite size. And it is really referencing something quite theoretical. But in these masterclasses, we're going to be deep diving into what you're doing. We're going to be deep diving into what the other women are doing. And through storytelling, you're going to see what it looks like in a real life business. I look forward to seeing your signups. This is an investment that makes complete logical sense, and it is an insane price for the amount of value that you're getting because of the decades it took for me to learn this. I don't want it to take you decades to learn and lots of failure as well as successes. So for now, enjoy, and I look forward to connecting with you in next week's episode of Your Power Packed Podlets.